Be on? Okay.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Hi, Suzanne. Hi, Scott. Hi, Ryan. Hi, Kevin. And hi, Matthew. Good to see you. And hello, Bhante. All right, without further ado, I'll pass it on to Bhante Suddhāso.
So first off, now that we've been practicing with the 6 elements for a couple of days, if you have any questions, remarks, please go ahead and type them into the live chat, and I can address those straight away. If there's nothing coming up immediately, then I'll say a few words. Nothing coming up yet?
Not really. So we have a few people that have come up to say hello. Peter and Julia and Victoria, Andy, Melinda, and Nora.
Great.
Hello to all of you. So Bhante just said that if you have any questions that have come up during your practice in the afternoon, feel free to put them in the live chat, and so he can address them straight away. And hello, UD. Sai.
Yeah, so at this point, we've gone through all 6 elements. So you should have some familiarity with all of them. And at this point, now that you know all 6, then you have the opportunity to be a little more creative in how you apply them. So one way of practicing is the way I've been teaching it, where in each meditation period, you pick one element that you choose to focus most or all of your time on. And that's great if you have a lot of time. For example, these days, many of us have lots of free time. So we can either spend it binge watching Netflix, or we could spend it practicing the 6 elements meditation. So if we choose to spend it with the 6 elements meditation, then you could do 6 periods of meditation in a day and do all 6 elements, 1 session per element. And that's a quite effective way of handling it, because as several people have pointed out, it takes a bit of time to really get deeply into any particular element. You could also do it over the course of several days, as we've also spoken about. So 1 element per day, which works out pretty well. So that's 6 days. You can also do all 6 elements in 1 meditation period. So this is a bit more condensed, but it's great for the bored, restless types, people who like to move their minds around a lot, because you'll be changing technique every 5 minutes. So you can do the earth element and the water element and the heat element and the wind element and the space element and the consciousness element, and spend 5 minutes or so on each one, 5 or 10 minutes on each one. And that can be a whole period of meditation. And the thread that ties it all together is the perception of not self, the recognition that each of the elements is not you. It doesn't belong to you, it doesn't define you. It's also perfectly acceptable to find just one element that you really like and just use that one most of the time. So if you find, for example, that the fire element is very good for you, if you find that you have a strong connection with it and it works well for you, well, you could actually use that as your main meditation method if you wish to. You don't necessarily need to go through all the elements, though it's useful. It's useful, but it's not strictly necessary. Or on the flip side, if you find that there's a couple of the elements that are especially challenging for you, that are especially difficult for you, then you could make an extra effort to give more time and attention to developing those, to making a genuine effort to develop a proficiency with those methods. Because the mind is flexible. It's not rigid, it's not inflexible, it's something that can be trained and changed. So you might think right now that maybe you don't have much affinity with the fire element, for example. You might find it very difficult. But if you keep practicing with it, then it will get easier. because you're developing an affinity. You're building up your affinity with it. And so it's useful to be able to do all 6 elements to at least some degree, to at least some extent. Another practice that you can do, and this is what I was thinking of leading the meditation in tonight, is to go through the 6 elements fairly quickly, and then recognize that the 6 elements are inseparable from each other. That there's no lines or boundaries or borders between them. That they're all simply different perspectives on the same thing. They're just different ways of looking at the same thing. So then one can go through the 6 elements and then drop all of them in seeing that all of them are interconnected. All of them are inseparable from each other. All of them are just different perspectives of seeing the same reality, the same truth. So this can be seen as a 7th step. 7th step, well, 7th and 8th if we want to go that way. 7th is seeing all the 6 elements as inseparable from each other. And the 8th step then is to drop the elements entirely and just to rest in the direct perception of not self. The direct awareness that body and mind are not self. So that can be kind of a capstone practice. Another practice which works well as a capstone is silent illumination practice. So you go through the 6 elements, and then after going through the 6 elements, you drop all forms. You drop all methods. You drop all objects. And you let the mind rest in the complete relinquishment of all phenomena. That's another option. And in my experience, after going through the 6 elements and seeing each one as not self, then silent illumination practice is significantly easier. It's more accessible than it normally is. So there's a few ways that you can play with this meditation method. And also within each method, there's a lot of variety that you can employ. So I've been speaking about one way of practicing with the 6 elements, and it's a way which works pretty well for me. But you might find that there's other ways of working with the 6 elements that is more successful for you, that's more beneficial for you. You'll also find that there's many different teachers who talk about meditating with the elements and who give somewhat different ways of practicing than what I've been giving. So you can also explore the methods that other teachers have given and see how that works for you, see how beneficial that is for you, and see if maybe there's elements of those other practices that you'd like to incorporate and see how it benefits you and affects you. So the world is yours, as they say. I mean, it's not. The world is not yours. But we do have the ability to experiment with our practice. So Buddhist meditation is very flexible. This is one of its perks. It's very flexible. You have lots and lots of options and lots of ways of exploring those options. So as long as we stay within the general framework of the Buddha's teachings, there's a lot of space for experimentation, a lot of space for improvisation, a lot of space for exploration. But it's very important to understand the boundaries of what defines Buddhist meditation, what distinguishes it from non-Buddhist meditation. And the main defining boundaries of Buddhist meditation are that it leads towards the relinquishing of defilements, the abandoning of greed, hatred, and delusion, the cultivation of the recognition of dukkha, the recognition that all things are unsatisfying, that they're dukkha, the recognition that all things are impermanent, they're anicca, they're insubstantial, and the recognition that everything is impersonal, that nothing whatsoever is our true self, that nothing whatsoever is us or our possession. And the cultivation of mental unification, of concentration as an aid to the development of that direct awareness. So if it fits in those categories, then we can safely conclude that it's Buddhist meditation. But if it's not within those categories, we can pretty safely conclude that it doesn't have anything to do with Buddhism. It might be useful to a certain extent, but it It doesn't fit the definition of Buddhism, because the definition of Buddhist meditation is meditation which leads to full enlightenment. It's meditation which leads to awakening. So as long as we're moving towards awakening, as long as we're moving towards enlightenment, then we've got a lot of freedom to choose how we're going to meditate, how we're going to train and develop our minds. So I hope that over these past couple of days, you've learned something useful, something valuable that gives you something to work with in developing your mind for the sake of awakening. So the 6 elements meditation, in my experience, is not very commonly taught, which is a real shame because it's a lot of fun. And it's a very interesting way of training the mind. It's a very interesting way of developing our practice. And it holds a lot of appeal for people who find the more commonly taught methods of mindfulness and of the body and mindfulness of breathing and so on to be challenging or even distasteful. So explore these methods, see how they work for you. And you might explore them and decide that it's just not your thing. And that's totally fine, because you've got lots of other options. Or you might explore them and find that it's something that you really like and you want to do all the time. And that's fine too. Or you might explore it and decide that it's something that you like to do once in a while, as I do, but not all the time. And that's fine too. So it's just putting another tool in your toolkit. Another tool that you can pull out when the time is right, and leave in the box when the time is not right. So my toolkit has many tools, not as many as some monks, but it's got a fair number. And this is one of them. It's something that I pull up from time to time, not that often, but from time to time, when it feels right, when it feels like the best way of working with the mind. So hopefully you'll find a place for it in your own toolkit and get some benefit from these practices. So at this time, if there's any questions or comments, I'd like to address those. And then once we're done with the questions and comments, we'll do a bit more meditation together.
Right, thank you, Bhante. So Sally is asking, is the 6 elements conscious practice links to the sphere of boundless conscious in the 2nd level of formless world?
It can, if it's developed in a particular way. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow when I go through the 2nd half of the Anupada Sutta, because the 2nd half of that sutta is all about the formless attainments. Yeah, so we'll talk about that tomorrow morning.
Right, so you can connect with us tomorrow at 8 a.m. and we'll go through that sutta with Bhante. And Suzanne says, I lost you guys after the first 2 pages of the Parita chanting. Where can I find the rest? You can let me know after. We will let you know later.
Yeah.
And hi, RM, Catalina, and Jerry, and Ting Kwang. And Sally has another question. When we have wandering thoughts, can I think this thought just arise in the conscious, it's not self, and let the thoughts go and come back to conscious? Maybe this helps cutting wandering thoughts.
Yeah, so one simile that's commonly used, especially in the Tibetan traditions, is the mind is like the sky and thoughts are like clouds. So the clouds float across the sky, but the clouds do not hinder the sky. They don't alter the sky. They don't destroy the sky, and they are not the sky itself. They're just things which float across the sky. So as long as we keep our attention on the sky, then the clouds will not bother us. They'll float across the sky every now and then, but they won't bother us because we'll know that that's not the sky and we won't turn our attention towards them. So the same, when you're focusing on the consciousness element, just keep focusing on the consciousness element. The objects that come and go within consciousness are not of interest. They're not the point. It's the consciousness element itself that we're trying to clearly perceive and to recognize as being not me and not mine. Okay?
Thank you. And Peter says, is it helpful to sometimes remind oneself during a particular element meditation with the thought, not me, not mine, or avoid such a thought?
Hmm. Yeah, if it's helpful. So sometimes it is helpful to give yourself those little reminders, especially if you're straying off track or if you're losing the meditation or if your meditation is getting shallow or dull or vague, then it's very helpful to bring up those little reminders. My recommendation is to keep your reminders very short and very pointed. Uh, so, not me, not mine. It's very short and to the point. Rather than something like, now I should remind myself that what I'm actually seeing is not really me. Like, if it's too long and it doesn't get to the point quickly enough, then it will just drag you further off track. But if it's very short and potent, then it will help keep you on track. So, not me, not mine, just nature. Or not me, not mine. Or not me. So you can keep it short, short enough that it's powerful, but also make sure that it conveys the message. If something's too cryptic, then that's not helpful either. So play with it for yourself and find some words or phrases that really help keep you on track. So during the guided meditations, I've been giving a few examples of words and phrases that I find helpful. And you can say things like that to yourself from time to time during the meditation. But when you're deep into the meditation, you won't need the words and phrases. So at that time, you just let it drop and stay focused on deepening the subtlety of the perception itself. Okay?
And Peter is adding, while doing the consciousness meditation, there was a lot of quietness except for a pleasant sensation in the area of the brain. Any thoughts? Is that part of the meditation or was I off track?
Pleasant sensation in the body doesn't really have anything to do with the consciousness element. So I don't think that's related at all. So the brain is not the mind is not the brain, consciousness is not the brain is not consciousness. The brain is just part of the body. So you might have pleasant sensations in your brain area, or you might have pleasant sensations in your foot area. Neither one has anything to do with the consciousness element, except that they are objects which appear within consciousness. That's the only relation. So it's no problem that these sensations happen, but it's also not of any significance. Okay.
All right, thank you. And Trisha is asking, is it a right to practice in two different Buddhist traditions? I have a connection to both Vajrayana and Theravada Buddhism.
So in my opinion, there's no such thing as separate Buddhist traditions, which means there's no problem with practicing multiple styles. That said, you have to know what you're doing. You need to understand what the core components of Buddhist practice are. You need to understand what the goal is, and you need to make sure that you're moving towards the goal. So if you understand what enlightenment is, and you understand the Noble Eightfold Path, and you keep doing things that move you down that path towards that goal, then you'll be fine. So whether you're drawing things from Theravada or Mahayana or Vajrayana, doesn't really matter as long as it's moving you towards awakening. Okay.
Thank you. And Sally's asking, could Bhante explain a bit more about how does the 6 elements meditation help silent illumination?
Yeah, so what it tends to do is to give one a very thorough picture of one's experience. And a thorough picture of one's experience as being not self. So this makes it a little bit easier to practice that basic instruction. Drop all forms. So it's the basic instruction for silent illumination. Drop all forms. So when you've clearly seen all 6 elements and you see them as not self and therefore as not something worth holding on to, then the mind more readily moves towards dropping them, towards letting go of them. Okay.
And Judith Sai is asking, Bhante, I need to skip the fire and water element. So how should I do this? I mean, if we're going to meditate on it now, if not, then never mind.
I'm curious why you need to skip the fire and water elements.
I think we addressed that earlier today, if I remember correctly, but I might be wrong. That I think that the fire and water element were triggering certain. I think the fire element was triggering lust, perhaps, and
the water element was triggering disgust.
Something like that.
Yeah. If that's what you feel you have to do for now, then that's okay. Then just stay with the earth element, the air element, the space element, and consciousness element. That's okay. But as I said earlier, I do encourage you when you feel relatively safe, relatively comfortable, not too comfortable, because our Buddhist practice should be slightly uncomfortable, because that's a sign that we're making progress. But when you feel relatively comfortable, to start exploring those a bit more closely and start working through the discomfort that they bring up. Because that's an indication that you're running into a little pouch of defilements inside your mind. You run into a little pocket of defilements. And so the water and fire elements might give you an opportunity to break through those reservoirs of defilement. But maybe today's not the day, and that's okay. So then keep practicing with the other elements. So yeah, during the guided meditation, I will be going through all 6 elements. So when I get to instructions on the water and fire elements, if you want to just stay with the earth element, that's okay.
Okay, and Sally is asking, I want to make sure I understand consciousness and mind chitta correctly. So chitta arises from Hadaya Vatu, which is the heart as basis of mind. This heart basis is the material place where mind arises, limited to this body. However, consciousness vijnana, that is the abstract, the concept, the idea of thoughts. So it can be anywhere in the whole universe. I found a sentence explaining this. Is it correct? Hadaya Vatu is the link between the Manoloka, mind plane, and the material plane. Whether it is in Kama Loka, Rupa Loka, or Arupa Loka, for example, anywhere in the 31 realms, this helps me in terms of understanding the idea that consciousness can be vast and broad.
So I have no idea what you're talking about, to be perfectly honest, which means that it's not from the suttas, which means I don't know where it's from and leaves me incapable of commenting on it. So this is probably from some apocryphal text, which I've never read because I haven't bothered to read much of the apocryphal texts. Yeah, so I'm very skeptical. I'm very skeptical of the quote that you just read because it's not from the suttas. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it. Again, with the consciousness element, what we're bringing attention to is that vast open mental space within which mental objects appear. That's really it. We don't need to go into more detail. And in particular, this idea of the mind being located within a certain part of the body, no. There's actually a lovely meditation method where you can actually ask yourself, where is the mind? And really try to feel, where is the mind? Is it inside the body? Is it outside the body? Is it in the head? Is it in the heart? Is it in the abdomen? Where is it? Where is the mind? And one of the interesting things about this meditation is that you can't find an answer. There's no clearly discernible location to the mind. But don't take my word for it. Try it out. See what happens. Where is the mind? Yes, I'm quite skeptical of this idea that the mind is located in the physical heart region. because the mind is not located anywhere in space, because it's not a physical thing. So trying to look for a non-physical thing in the physical world is a losing game. You've lost the moment you started. So I just wouldn't go there. When you're looking at the consciousness element, that has nothing whatsoever to do with your body. So if you're looking in your body, you will miss it. It's not there. It's not separate from the body, but it's not the body, and it's not in the body. Okay, next question.
The last question is also from Sally, and she says, may I ask, in the future when we practice on our own this method, if we have questions, where can we find the guidance or answers?
Well, with the format that we're using here, then you would write down your questions and bring them to the next live session. We might use a different format in the future, but for now, this is the format that we have. So I would go with this one for now. So between the live sessions, write down any questions you have and then type them in at the start of the next live session. So if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and do some meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So please get into a meditation posture. So getting your body arranged in a nice stable way. And taking a few long, slow, deep breaths. So letting the body and mind relax. Bring attention into your body, feeling the earth element of the body, feeling its heaviness, its solidity. And feeling the solidity of the body, the solid matter of the body, as inseparable from the solid matter of the clothing around it, the floor beneath it, the walls and ceilings around it. As if the body was just a natural extension of the floor and the walls, natural extension of the earth. recognizing that the earth element is just earth element. Not me, not mine, just earth. Not me, not mine, just nature. And bringing attention to the water element, feeling the moisture saturating the body. Feeling that moisture is not separate from the moisture of the air around you, not separate from the moisture in the whole world. It's all just the same water element. No inside, no outside. Not me, not mine. Just water. Not me, not mine. Just nature. Bringing attention to the fire element of the body, to its warmth, its heat, its radiance. Feeling the heat of the body as indistinguishable from the heat of the rest of the world, indistinguishable from the heat of your clothing, the floor, the air, the room. the whole earth, the whole universe. It's just one vast extent of heat element. So feeling the heat element without any sense of me or mine. Not me, not mine, just heat. Not me, not mine, just nature. Feeling the air element of the body, the wind circulating through the body. Feeling the body inflating and deflating as the air element blows through it. Not me, not mine, just air. Not me, not mine, just nature. Bringing attention to the space element, the empty space occupied by the other four elements. This vast extent of open space. Holding all physical things without obstruction, without difficulty. Feeling the vast extent of borderless, edgeless, indivisible space. Open, accepting, limitless space. Recognizing that space is not me, not mine, just space. Not me, not mine, just nature. Recognizing that all of space, all the objects within space are contained within consciousness, as well as all other mental objects. All are contained within the domain of consciousness, which, just like space, this consciousness is vast, open, limitless. Giving room to the arising of all things, not obstructing anything, not limited by anything. This vast, open consciousness. Feeling that limitless field of open consciousness. The mind space in which mind objects appear and move and disappear. So this consciousness also we can see as not me, not mine, just consciousness. Not me, not mine, just nature. recognizing that all six elements are inseparable from each other, that all six share the same quality of not me, not mine, just nature. All six have the same aspect of not self. Dropping any sense of distinction or separation between the six elements. Dropping all sense of distinct objects, dropping all sense of separate things, separate domains. Letting the mind rest, bright, alert, clearly knowing, without attaching to anything, without adhering to any perception, to any object, to any perspective. Letting the mind rest in bright, alert, knowing relinquishment. Not being anything, not seeking anything. So you can release your posture, do a little bit of stretching if you wish. Take a few seconds to rest in the peacefulness of the mind, not doing anything, so just appreciating the serenity, the clarity of the mind. And when you're ready, if you have any questions or comments, you can go ahead and type them into the live chat. And I'll address any final thoughts for the day. So do we have anything coming up yet?
Yes, we have some questions, I think from right before the meditation or during the meditation. So Peter was asking, I have heard some monastics say that at death, the stream of consciousness leaves the body. But I think I heard you say consciousness is not in the body, or did I misunderstand?
Yeah, I would say consciousness is not in the body. So I think if someone says consciousness leaves the body, um, that's a way of speaking which is useful for communication, but which is not necessarily meant to be a precisely accurate statement. Um, a more accurate statement might be that consciousness is attached to the body, in the sense that we think the body is me, therefore we remain attached to it, we adhere to it. But when the body dies, it becomes pretty clear that that wasn't us after all. So we cease to be attached to it. And usually immediately we start seeking another state of being. We start seeking another state of existence. Because that's our habit. So we move on to something else. But again, it's kind of beside the point. For the sake of this meditation, we're not really concerned with such things. We're concerned with getting a direct experience of the consciousness element and directly recognizing the consciousness element as being not me and not mine. So if we get too caught up in trying to conceptualize things, then we miss the directness of this meditation method. Okay, anything else?
Yes, Maria is asking, hello and thank you. What can I do when physical silence is not possible? I just recently developed tinnitus, I think it's called, which is constant ringing in the ear. I apologize if I'm off topic.
So you have a great meditation object which you can use. So the sound of the ringing in your ears, that can be your meditation object. Try that for a while. One, you might find it's a great way to develop samadhi. So many people do. Many people find that it's actually a wonderful meditation object that brings a lot of peacefulness and concentration. And even if that's not your experience, what you will find is that by using it as your meditation object for a while, that it loses its power over you, that it no longer has the ability to disturb you or distract you, because you'll come to terms with it. You'll come to peace with it. So that's my recommendation. Use the tinnitus as your meditation object for a little while. And a little while might be a few days or a few weeks or a few months or possibly longer. But probably on the order of a few weeks. If you do it every day for a few weeks, then it will cease to be an obstacle for you, and it might even become your new friend in meditation practice. Okay?
Wonderful, thank you. And Andy says, exquisite weekend of teachings and practice. Thank you and much metta. Yes, and also RM says, thanks a lot. Yes, I agree. We're all very grateful for Bhante's teachings. He managed to synthesize a lot of content in a short amount of time, but in a very powerful way. So sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And Kevin is encouraging all of us to practice dana on the Buddhist Insights website. So you can go on www.buddhistinsights.com/donate. Thank you for being our spiritual friend, Kevin. Sadhu. And Sally asks, if I can stay in feeling of one element, can I stay in experiencing the element? Will anatta, anicca arise by itself at some point, or it's better recognize anatta to gain the insight actively?
You do need to intentionally point your mind towards anatta, or else it won't go there, because it's not our habit. Our habit is atta sanya, to see things as self. So we need to consciously develop anatta sanya, seeing things as not self. So if you just focus on feeling the element, then you will gain samadhi, which is good. But samadhi by itself will not bring you to awakening. Samadhi by itself only brings you to temporary states of peacefulness, which are still good. And that temporary peacefulness helps you stabilize your mind, which makes it easier to develop wisdom, to develop insight. But yeah, it's not enough. If you just stay with the element, then that's not enough. That said, if you stay with the element for a long time, then your mind will become very stable and peaceful and clearly aware of that element, which means that when you develop the perception of not self, or the perception of impermanence, then it will be powerful and effective. So it's okay to stay with just feeling the element for a long time, as long as your intention is to eventually develop the recognition of not self or of impermanence.
Great, thank you. And we have lots of other appreciative comments from Bobby, Mehmet, Peter, Matthew, Julia, Scott, etc. And Jerry is asking, I have never heard of this. Actually, he's making a comment. Have never heard of the 6 elements before, but found this weekend's teaching to be invaluable and will certainly delve further into these. Thank you for sharing the teachings.
Great. Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I started occasionally offering courses in the 6 elements, is because it's not very common. So very few teachers talk about the elements at all, and those who do mostly just talk about the first 4. So I think it's useful to have these techniques out there, because for some people, it's really just what they need. It's just right. So I'm happy that you got benefit from these teachings, and I really hope that you'll explore them deeper and that you'll attain full enlightenment for the benefit of all beings.
Sadhu. And Andy also says, I love using the sound of silence as a meditation object. Ajahn Sumedho has much YouTube material on this, and also lots of books that you can find freely on the internet.
Yeah, so I think that's directed at the person who mentioned the tinnitus situation. So the sound of silence, there's a lot of overlap with the experiences that you're having. So thank you, Andy. Yes, if you look up Ajahn Sumedho's teachings on the sound of silence, you'll find that's helpful for cultivating for integrating tinnitus into your meditation practice.
And Yudi is really sweet, saying, kindly support BI so our teachers may continue bringing us the Dhamma.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Sadhu. Lots of other appreciative comments. It's so cute. Sally also says, I will keep practicing. Sorry that I asked a lot of questions. Totally new learner. That's great.
No problem. So questions are good, because questions, they help you learn. They also give the basis for starting a discussion, which then helps other people learn from listening to the discussion. And they also spark me to think more deeply about the topic so that I can present it in more detail and more clarity. So you don't need to apologize for asking lots of questions, because questions are helpful to everybody involved. So no problem at all.
All right. So I think we've reached the end of our weekend retreat. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Rejoice in your practice and having spent so much time working in dispelling delusion and developing wisdom and wholesome mind states. So, um, thank you once again, Bhante, for sharing the Dharma. Morning, night, day, evening, 24/7. And we will be seeing him again in less than 12 hours at 8 a.m. For the morning sutta discussion. So, the second part of the sutta that we were discussing on Friday, which was the
Anupada Sutta.
Anupada Sutta. Perfect. Thank you for reminding me. And so we'll be meeting throughout the week for sutta study at 8 a.m. And then in the evening, we will have, as usual, 7:30 p.m. Metta meditation, followed by Dharma talk and Dharma discussion. So bring your questions there, Sally, together with everyone else. And then the upcoming weekend, we will have a slightly different format of a weekend retreat. I mean, it will be kind of like same difference, but but it will be more on exploring strong emotions. That will be the topic of the weekend retreat, since it's probably appropriate given the times. We can explore the topic together for the weekend. All right. Well, see you all tomorrow and have a great.